How did the Scourge conquer Lordaeron? World of Warcraft lore. Now, this lore is probably one of the most significant lore events to ever happen in the game, and it's going to be significant again in Midnight, right? We got the healing of the dead scarred, everything going on. Obviously, the Scourge working their way up to Silvermoon. Silvermoon finally being rebuilt. Hasn't been rebuilt since the day that Arthas invaded it. So all of this lore coming back. We know some shit's going to happen with the undead, maybe with Lordaeron again. I've always said rebuild Lordaeron. We'll see if that happens. But let's check out, revisit the Scourge conquering Lordaeron, one of the biggest events to ever happen in WoW.
In the heart of Azeroth's eastern kingdoms, where rolling hills met ancient forests and the spires of grand cities pierced the sky, there stood a realm of unyielding pride and fragile peace. Lordaeron. Imagine her not as a mere stone and soil, but as a living entity, a noble queen, crowned with the gleaming towers of her capital city, her veins pulsing with the lifeblood of her people. Farmers tilled her fertile lands, scholars debated in her halls, and knights in shining armor swore oaths to protect her borders.
I so want a rebuilt Lordaeron, man. Can we just get it? Can we just get it? I mean, the undead don't need to live underground anymore. They don't have to be this, like, scare, people hiding underground. They should come out, rebuild the city. I just want to walk the same path that Arthas did as he re-entered the city. The rose petals falling as I enter the city. Is that too much to ask? Can I just have that as an in-game thing? And then entering a rebuilt throne room? Oh my God, it'd be amazing. Sam's boner shot. I mean, yeah, it's there because this is quintessential, like, core Warcraft lore. And to me, it's the best lore in the game.
Ruled by the wise King Tyrannus Menethil II, Lordaeron was the beacon of the Alliance, a bastion against the chaos that had scarred the world in wars past. With the young prince Arthas Menethil being beloved by the people, the future of Lordaeron was warmly secure. She had endured the Orcish hordes, emerged scarred but stronger, her people resilient, their faith in the light unwavering. But even the mightiest can fall to whispers in the dark, to shadows that creep unseen. In this video, my friends, we are answering the question, how did the Scourge conquer Lordaeron?
Man, I'm so excited for this.
Our tale begins not with clashing swords or thundering armies, but with a single man, a mage of the Kirin Tor named Kel'Thuzad. Once a respected archmage of Dalaran, Kel'Thuzad grew disillusioned with the rigid arcane traditions of his peers. He hungered for forbidden knowledge, for power that transcended life and death, and from out of the frozen wastes of Northrend, a voice answered his greed for power. It was not a man who called him, nor any beast of the world of Azeroth, but a
Dreadlord
suit of armor trapped within a frozen tower of ice. And it promised Kel'Thuzad dominion over mortality itself, and the mage, seduced by visions of eternal rule, began to listen to the words of this strange voice. Despite the protests of his peers and near banishment due to his experiments on dead rats, Kel'Thuzad persisted in his ambitions.
Yeah, I mean, his dabbling in necromancy, right? Kel'Thuzad kind of is a joke at this point. He's known as the Loot Pinata. We've killed him so many times. But yeah, back then, I mean, he was the intro to necromancy in this world. He really was. Dabbling in that kind of magic. Now, the suit of armor reaching out to him and stuff like that. As I understood it, it was more, not necessarily the suit of armor, but I thought it was like Dreadlord whispers coming his way. I guess I understood that wrong. I always thought it was kind of that whole thing where they kind of pulled him towards the suit of armor and eventually, corruption ensued and all that kind of shit. But he was already kind of corrupted. His thirst for power and magic, that led him down the necromancy route, and then just the rest of this kind of ensued after that. You understand everything wrong, Sam. Probably true. Probably true.
Ambitions that ultimately took him to those frozen wastes of Northrend, where, unknown to all,
the jailer planned it all.
His very soul to the being.
Let's just assume the jailer lord never happened. That's the best way to understand this lore.
Whom he now called the Lich King. The story of which, called Road to Damnation, I recently read for heroic channel members right here on Nixium, if you all want to check that out after this video. The Lich King gave to the wizard a new purpose, to create a group of like-minded individuals to serve the frozen throne from afar, advancing the aims of their dark master. Kel'Thuzad, he was told, would be their leader, an ambassador to the living from the Lich King himself. Thus, the Cult of the Damned was born, an insidious web of fanatics woven in secrecy across Lordaeron's underbelly. Kel'Thuzad returned from Northrend not as a lone heretic, but as a prophet, offering listeners the chance at immortal life.
Yeah, this is the beginning of the creation of the plague and everything else that eventually spread, and Stratholme and all these events soon followed after. Yeah, the Cult of the Damned played a major role in all of this.
So he slithered into the kingdom's fringes, whispering promises to the desperate and the ambitious, disgruntled nobles, weary peasants burdened by taxes from endless wars, and even disillusioned priests who questioned the light's mercy. They all fell under his words and the Lich King's spell. The cult masqueraded as a benevolent order offering salvation from the world's woes. Join us, they murmured in taverns and shadowed alleys.
Can we just
transcend?
Can we just confirm right here that taxes are the source of evil? It's always high taxes. High taxes lead to problems all the time. Disillusions the people. The people look for other sources of freedom away from these horrible taxes. And enter Cult of the Damned. Sounds like a real life problem. Yeah, sometimes art imitates life. Or life imitates art, as they say, too. Yeah. Taxes.
Frailties of flesh, but their true
If there weren't taxes, the Scourge wouldn't happen.
Necromancy, the art of raising the dead as slaves to an unholy will. The immortality they offered? A chance to linger in the world as a decaying body, bound in service to a master seated upon a frozen spire of ice. And would you believe it? Many listened and began to follow.
Desperation.
At first, the corruption was subtle, like a rot hidden beneath a blooming rose. Cultists infiltrated granaries and trade routes, their dark rituals infusing shipments with an insidious plague they had been ordered to spread. But this was no ordinary sickness. It was a carefully manufactured plague of undeath, a demonic concoction brewed in shadowy cauldrons, bubbling with green bile and ooze. The Lich King's design was masterful.
Really, this is the source of necromancy in Azeroth. This is the beginning of undeath. It didn't really exist before then. There was always necromancy as a spell work, as a practice of magic, but on the scale that it is today, where we just have undeath all over the place in Azeroth, this is the very beginning of that.
Turning the kingdom's own sustenance against it. Grain carts rolled out from towns like Anderhall, which was a bustling hub in Lordaeron's heartlands, laden with tainted flour. Bakers kneaded it into loaves, families shared it at their hearths, and soldiers rationed it in their barracks. The Cult of the Damned's plague began slowly at first, but soon it spread like wildfire through dry grass, silent but swift. The symptoms appeared overnight. Feverish chills, blackened veins crawling across the skin like spiderwebs, and then death. But death was not the end.
Just
Victims
the beginning.
rose again as mindless undead, ghouls with hollow eyes, shambling abominations hungering for the living. Outlying villages fell first. Then Lordaeron's major cities began to show symptoms.
And one man heeded the call. That's right. One man heard the call, saw the desperate times, and decided to take action. That one man was Arthas. Did Arthas do anything wrong by trying to stop the scourge from spreading, trying to stop this plague from becoming worse? Because once you were infected, there was no cure. And in fact, your infection would then be spread to others, right? And your undeath would lead to their undeath, because eventually, once you become a mindless scourge, you're going to kill your own family, and then your own family is going to rise as well. So did he do the right thing? He was trying to stop this thing from spreading by killing people whose, fate was already sealed. I don't know. Perhaps it would have just been better off to, seal off the city and try to let them starve to death. I don't know. Is that more gracious? Is that a more, humane end to allow this scourge just to form and then starve to death because you've quarantined the entire city off? It would have been tough. It would have been tough, and it wouldn't have been guaranteed to work either, because if one scourge or even one grain of rice gets out of there, this thing could spread again. So the whole Arthas did nothing wrong trope continues.
Fear began to spread throughout the kingdom, just as Kel'Thuzad and his dark master had anticipated. What fires of hope remained were held in the hearts of Lordaeron's noble knights and paladins, yet even they, in quiet moments, began to doubt. Had the light begun to abandon them? Now, enter Prince Arthas Menethil, the heir to Lordaeron's throne, a golden-haired paladin whose hammer gleamed with holy light. Arthas was the kingdom's hope made manifest, a fierce warrior trained under Uther the Lightbringer and the Knights of the Silver Hand, sworn to defend the innocent.
Badass.
And when reports of the plague reached Capital City, he was swift to ride out with
He forgot his other titles. He is Arthas, yes, all those things that he mentioned, but also he is Arthas Fucker of Jaina and Arthas Dueler of Varian. Yeah, if you didn't know, he had a relationship with Jaina. And he also dueled Varian as kids all the time. Him and Varian Rin constantly dueled, and Varian used to win a lot of times. And that's where a lot of the combat lessons came in for Arthas. Now, Arthas, he was trained in combat, trained in the light and all of that. Really, the way he knew how to solve problems was through his hammer. That's kind of how he was raised, right? So to kind of say that he should have been looking for a cure rather than purging a city, he just wasn't taught to think that way. And maybe looking for a cure was the right option. Maybe there was no cure. Maybe there was no chance. Even if he had looked for one, by the time he found one, could have been too late. But his decision to purge this city was very much a result of his upbringing and his training. That's just how he was trained.
Yielding resolve. I will stop this, he vowed, his words an oath to himself and to his people. Alongside
forth
the
the
mage
case that
Jaina
Arthas is
Proudmoore,
innocent,
his
yes.
love, he traced the plague to its source, the fallen wizard Kel'Thuzad and his cult of the damned hiding around and within Anderhall. In a blaze of righteous fury, Arthas confronted the necromancer amid fields of withered crops. Kel'Thuzad mocked him, proclaiming that his death at the prince's hands would mean little in the end. It was already over for Lordaeron. The son of King Taranis had little choice but surrender and submit to the will of the damned. But Arthas, he proceeded to strike the founder of the Cult of the Damned down. But his victory,
Solve
the prince
problems with
soon
your hammer.
discovered, was indeed a hollow one. The plague raged on, and more reports poured in of settlements falling to the strange sickness or the undead hordes that haunted the forests of the country. Driven by desperation, Arthas rode north to Stratholme, a once thriving port city. It was soon to become a charnel house. Lordaeron's proud city was already beginning to bleed from within, some of her people twisting into monsters that swelled the Scourge's
Now,
ranks.
in Midnight, it's already been confirmed. We are returning to Stratholme with Eretor. Now, we don't know yet if this is like Stratholme, the rebuilt city, post the Scourge, post the culling and all of that, whether or not the city's now going to be remade again, and we'll see it in its former glory for the first time in game, right? But, or I say the second time because technically we time warped our way back here and redid the event of the culling of Stratholme. But we know this is going to be significant again. Something about Stratholme. Eretor has an entire quest line where we go back and revisit the city. So this story is going to be important again in Midnight. We're just not exactly sure why yet.
The Scourge. That was the name for this growing army of the dead, an unstoppable tide orchestrated by the Lich King from his frozen throne afar. And it was there at Stratholme that Arthas discovered the horrible truth. The city's grain was tainted, its greater populace hours from turning into undead. In a moment that would shatter his soul, Arthas made a fateful choice. This entire city must be purged, he declared,
Famous
ordering
lines.
his men to slaughter the infected before they could rise into the undead. Uther, his teacher, and Jaina, his lover, they both recoiled in horror. Ultimately,
Can we agree, though, that Uther also fucked up here? Clearly, I like Uther the Lightbringer. I don't really care for Uther the crying baby Shadowlands version. But Uther, the badass, he was a badass. He was, and he was a great teacher. You know, practiced in the light, was a fantastic paladin. But I think in this moment where his student, perhaps, or his pupil fucked up, maybe, right? Culling might have not been the right option. But for him just to abandon him in this moment, not even try to convince him. He just kind of fought with him in the moment and then left him to do his thing. That seemed like it was the wrong decision. Uther himself made a big mistake here. And then Jaina, I mean, imagine. This man was clapping Jaina's cheeks. All of a sudden, she walks away. Last thing he sees is her cheeks. I mean, yeah, that's going to leave a man enraged. He's going to purge a city. It'll happen to the best of us.
abandoning Arthas to his supposed madness.
Definitely mistakes were made
Despite
here.
any protests or doubts, however, the noble prince waded into the streets with his loyal men to be greeted by cheers and cries that Stratholme had been saved by the young man's presence alone. How wrong they were. Arthas's hammer crushed skulls, blood stained his armor. The once shining prince of Lordaeron was now decorated with the entrails and curses of his own people. And that is when something curious occurred. A demon made itself manifest before him.
Entered the Dreadlords.
Mal'Ganis. And this creature told the young prince that the city of Stratholme now belonged to him, with Mal'Ganis raising the citizens.
Total rage bait here. Mal'Ganis totally rage baited. He didn't give a shit about ruling over the city. But he played it off that way, that this was now his city and king be gone. This is now my territory. We've taken it over. And then he rage baited Arthas into continuing on his campaign all the way to Northrend. It was definitely a big Dreadlord play. And now the Dreadlords in general, everyone's asking, and I saw this comment just yesterday, what's happening with the Dreadlords in Midnight? Where are these guys? Are they even in this whole story? And my answer to that, and my thought was, we know right now that the Dreadlords are playing in the background, right? We saw them in the Shadowlands, obviously with, oh my God, why am I forgetting his name right now? Are on your knees. What God? The leader of the Dreadlords. I can't even, what the hell? What's wrong with me? He's a great freaking character too. But he's out there still doing his thing. Someone in chat will remind me of his name real quick. No, not Pepe. Yeah, Pepe is the leader of the Dreadlords, definitely. But no, it's not Pepe. The Dreadlords are out there still playing in the background. They're on the side of the light. They're on the side of the void. They're on every side. They've infiltrated everything. Sire Denathrius, yes. Right when I saw the word daddy, I remember Daddy Denathrius. They're out there infiltrating every side. And that's the thing about the Dreadlords. They don't care which side wins, because they're already on every side of this fight. So to me, what the Dreadlords are going to do is they're going to take a break. They're going to sit back and wait to see who wins this final battle. They're not going to get involved in either side. And once things kind of lay out and play out, they're going to be there. Whether the Void wins or the Light wins or the Titans win or the people of Azeroth win, they are there. They've infiltrated every aspect of this game. So I think they're waiting. And I think the real Dreadlord threat with Sire Denathrius and everything else won't show its face until post-World Soul Saga. I think the Dreadlords will be the big bads in the background after the World Soul Saga has ended. The Dreadlords are a very cool threat, a more grounded threat than all the celestial shit that's going on, so I think people would embrace a Dreadlord threat finally rearing its ugly face, and finally we got to deal with these freaking guys. And I think that'll be the direction World of Warcraft goes post-World Soul Saga. After we've dealt with everything, World Soul and all that shit, okay, now everything's calmed down, return to your homes and everything else. Wait. These Dreadlords are still out there scheming. We start to realize that they're still doing their thing. Sire Denathrius is still a problem. Whatever his plan is going to start to come to fruition. And bam, enter kind of a soft reset of the game while two Dreadlords are a big bad.
Of the city into undeath and Arthas slaughtering his own people before they could turn. It was
and
a
yes,
brutal
Pepe
affair.
will be relevant, no doubt.
Stratholme burned that night.
The king of all
pyre
Dreadlords.
of screams and smoke, but the plague spread only accelerated elsewhere. Obsession consumed Arthas. He had to stop the plague at its source. He assumed it was Kel'Thuzad, but this Mal'Ganis clearly was the Scourge's true origin, or so he believed at the time. So he sailed to Northrend, defying warnings, seeking Mal'Ganis and a legendary rune blade called Frostmourne, said to hold the power to end the Scourge. And in the icy caverns of the Northlands, he found it, guarded by echoes of the past, whispering of the blade's terrible curse.
We just played through this in the game.
Whomsoever takes up this blade shall wield power eternal, the inscription read. Just as the blade rends flesh, so must power scar the spirit. Ignoring his friend Muradin Bronzebeard's pleas to retreat, Arthas claimed Frostmourne. The sword shattered its icy prison, killing Muradin in the blast, and bound the unknowing soul of Arthas.
See, I thought Muradin dies here, but then we found out later on that he doesn't, right? Like, is this some kind of weird retcon or something? Because I remember I was like, oh man, this is where Muradin dies. And then you guys all in chat were blowing me up like, no, he doesn't die here. He actually survives it. It just Arthas thought he was dead or whatever. And so, okay, then so this is why I keep tripping out on this. I think original lore thought he was dead or something, but it later changes. at some point. He lost his memory. Yeah, but he does survive. Right now, canon lore is that he survives this shit. So I was very confused about this, and Nixium right now said he died. So there you go.
To the Lich King, and now at last, the prince understood the truth of
We
it all.
believed he was
The
dead,
great
but we didn't
plan
see that
of the frozen
cutscene.
throne
Yeah,
was
maybe.
laid bare before his eyes. Lordaeron would be entirely destroyed by the Scourge, and Arthas would be the Lich King's instrument in striking the final blows. Ironic. Transformed into a Death Knight, Arthas tested his newfound powers by slaughtering the demon Mal'Ganis. But this victory too was an illusion, for the Lich King's voice now thundered in his head.
Also, you can't kill a Dreadlord. I mean, they come back, so... Yeah, he didn't know that yet.
Now, return to me, my champion, it said. Arthas vanished into the wastelands of the north, where the whispers of the frozen throne consumed him. But the prince did not remain in Northrend, no. His once noble heart encased in frost, Arthas sailed back to his home of Lordaeron. His eyes glowed with unholy blue fire, his will no longer his own. The
Such a
Lich
badass
King's orders
cinematic.
ever gnawing at his thoughts. He would return, but with a specific purpose in mind. His kingdom,
Succession.
already weakened by plague and undead hordes, welcomed its prince like a returning hero. King Taranis, aged and weary, he stood to embrace his son in the throne room, oblivious to the shadow that had claimed him. "What is this?" Taranis gasped as Arthas drew Frostmourne. "What are you doing, my son?" In a single chilling stroke, Arthas plunged the blade into the king's chest. Blood pooled onto the marble floors as Taranis slumped lifeless, his crown clattering aside. "This kingdom shall fall," Arthas declared, his voice a hollow echo. "And
Man,
from
epic
the ashes
moment, man.
shall arise a new order that will shake the very foundations of the world." With the king slain, Lord
Okay, now we got to compare. Which moment's better? This moment or the moment where the Nerubian queen gets killed by her daughter? You know, which one's more epic? I don't. Same, right? Same, even. No, clearly this. This is on a far more epic scale. This is old style lore, man. Shit like this don't happen no more. We need more. We need more. You know, I don't know. I don't know how you would describe it. Extreme dramatic scenes like this. It's a violent scene too, right? It's a son killing his father, and after he's been corrupted by all this shit, and he thinks he's doing something. No, the queen clearly, yeah. The queen was the more dramatic, a little dagger to the chest, and she died. This was a really cool moment. I think still, it's a lore-defining moment, and just the way the entire story of him returning, embraced, and then killing his father, who was at the time the leader of the largest kingdom in Azeroth. It's till now I get chills whenever I see this cinematic.
Crumbled from a lack of clear authority
Edgelord
and
cringe
direction.
shit, yeah.
Undead legions poured forth from the crypts, overwhelming any local guard. The capital's streets ran red, its people raised to scourge minions. The paladins of the Silver Hand, Arthas's former order, they tried to keep the light of hope and some semblance of structure alight amidst the growing shadow. But they too scattered into the forests and fled when their leader, Uther the Lightbringer, Arthas's mentor and teacher, was slain by the very prince he had raised with such pride. When Uther fell, the people of Lordaeron declared, all hope died with him. Arthas proceeded to exhume Kel'Thuzad's remains, summoning him back as a lich to help command the growing army of undead. "I told you," the necromancer laughed. "My death would mean little." He had been right,
He was
Arthas
right.
had to admit. The Lich King had
And here we have this whole event of the Kel'Thuzad returning and all that. This is exactly what happens in Midnight with the Dead Scar healing and everything. This was the event that led to the damage of Silvermoon, the Dead Scar forming, poisoning of the Sunwell, all that shit went down. This is that exact event that is now being healed finally in the Midnight expansion.
orchestrated
So all
everything
this remains relevant.
perfectly. All of his pawns moving on the board exactly as the frozen throne willed. Strange, though, Arthas had to admit. He still felt no remorse, no shame, no pity. Lordaeron, that once proud Lady Jewel of the North, now lay in ruins. Her towers toppled, her king killed, her lands blighted, her spirit broken. What remained became what is today called the Plague Lands, a haunted wasteland where the living dare not tread.
Evidently, this
What
will all be healed
remains
too.
are merely the undead and the weeping ghosts of Lordaeron's former citizens. The fall of Lordaeron began simply with a whisper, the voice of an unknown power afar, making fine promises in the ear of an
Unknown power afar. He cannot be the jailer that he's referring to, right? We can't. No, please, no. No Shadowlands lore here.
ambitious mage, and it ended with the Crown Prince
Hopefully he's talking about
ascending
Ner'zhul.
Icecrown Glacier, merging with that magical suit of armor trapped within the Frozen Throne. The circle was now complete. The kingdom had fallen. Its prince now sat atop the Frozen Throne as a new Lich King, and an era of undeath began, a scar on Azeroth that heroes would fight to heal for generations. And so, dear viewers, remember, even the brightest realms can fall to the shadow. And if this tale of tragedy and betrayal gripped you, please consider liking and subscribing for more dives into Warcraft's shadowed lore. And if
So
you're looking
badass
for another
indeed.
terrifying and spooky story to prepare you for this upcoming Halloween season, I dare you to watch The Forgotten Curse of Duskwood, linked right now on your screen. A special shout out to our channel members here on Nixium, as well as Zygor, the sponsor of this YouTube channel. I will see you all
Great video.
with my next video, and I hope that I was able to answer the question of how did the Scourge conquer Lordaeron?
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, such a dramatic event, such a core lore event, and continuing all these years later. This was in original Warcraft. This didn't even happen in World of Warcraft. We're talking about the original Warcraft series, okay? And it continued through the game and remains relevant even now, 20 plus years later as we head into midnight. That's how lore defining this moment was, and that's why I really wanted to watch this video. Great video from Nixium, and man, still one of the best stories ever told in Warcraft lore.